team member of Yes Realty Partners. Christopher Eagle is back in the house as well. I've dubbed Christopher Eagle the sharpest dressed realtor in Carr. And he's looking quite dapper today, too, with the fresh haircut.
Yes.
I'd say you got that in the last 2 or 3 days.
Friday, yep. Friday.
Yeah, man's looking sharp. Keith Smith always looks good. 4 guys talking real estate here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. I'm very excited to introduce you to Jason Taylor here in a matter of moments. The future is bright. Should we call you the Patrick Mahomes of YRP?
I mean, I think the hair is kind of getting there, and I have the energy like Pat. Hopefully, I'm just as lovable, and I'm trying to win rings like him too. So, you know what I mean?
Taylor, I like you, JT. I like you.
Oh, you're engaged. Was that kind of ring or the other kind of ring?
Real estate rings.
Pam already has the ring. I'm just trying to get real estate rings, and I'm just going to tack on to her dynasty.
There you go, dude. Jason,
I learned from Mr. Smith. I learned from Mr. Smith.
Oh, jeez.
All right, a lot to cover. Judah Wickower, we are in your hands. Good Monday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love Seville Network, presented by Yes Realty Partners. Find them online at yesrealtypartners.com. A lot to cover today, including the introduction of one of Carr's newest rock stars, Jason Taylor, a name and a brand that I think you're going to grow to love very quickly. Judah Wickower is our director. Christopher Eagle is also on set. And, of course, Keith Smith on a gorgeous Monday. Guys here in the Commonwealth. Judah, let's go to the 4-shot. Good morning, fellas.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I think we start with JT, right?
Yeah.
That's it, man.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to start. So to get everybody rolling.
Jason Taylor, introduce yourself to everybody.
Jason Taylor with a Y. Don't miss it when you spell it with YRP, Yes Realty Partners. I've been in the game for You like that, right? I try to bring a little sprinkle. But no, aside from that, I am a punny guy. But the thing I'm best at is being there for you guys, being a realtor. I've been in the Charlottesville area on and off since 2013. I currently reside in Palmyra with my beautiful fiance, Pam. Y'all will get to know her real well because you know me. You know, and our beautiful children, all 3 of our beautiful children. So a lot of energy, a lot of love, and most of all, a lot of relationship building with you guys. So really nice to meet you all. Again, Jason Taylor, realtor with Yes Realty Partners.
And you got a four-legged friend, too.
I got
don't miss that.
Friends. Hey, my buddy Coda and my buddy Rocco. Those guys are the best pups in the whole wide world. I just think I'm biased. But hey, it's a lot of love there.
3 kids, 2 dogs, and a beautiful fiance?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
And all live about a half a mile from my house.
Is that true?
Very true.
Yeah. Okay.
Fellow Laker.
Very nice.
Lakers and Lakers basketball or Lake Monticello Lakers?
I mean, Keith,
because I'm a Knicks fan because you went.
Okay. Either way, so it doesn't matter. You're out of my league.
Oh, I
we're
know
in the same
about that.
neighborhood. Yeah,
Jason,
about a block over.
I love the moniker Laker for Lake Monticello. That's a great moniker right there.
I wrote it down.
First time I've ever heard that. All right, let's get one of our favorite people in the mix too, Christopher Eagle. C. Eagle, introduce yourself to everybody yet again.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Christopher Eagle. At this point, I feel like I'm a veteran with Yes Realty Partners.
You are. You are.
A founding member, I guess you could say.
That's right, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, born and raised here in Charlottesville. Left for a little bit to go to Ohio University for college. Majored in photography. Never planned on coming back to Charlottesville, but it sucked me back in. I met my wife here. We got married here. I've been married since October of 2020. I love Keith's phrase of "that's your better 7/8", so that is for sure the absolute thing. She's handling it and running things over there on Chick-fil-A on Pantop, so if you're ever through there, feel free to say hey to my wife. So I mean, I'm I don't know what else you need to know about me, but
Dude, that Chick-fil-A on Pantops crushes it.
oh, it
It is a machine.
unreal what they're able to do.
It's divine chicken.
Yeah,
It's divine.
I
chicken.
call it the Lord's chicken. So
the Lord Chicken. And we say all the time, we joke around, and we'll get Keith in the mix here too. If Chick-fil-A had rolled out vaccinations in this community, dude, it would have gone flawlessly.
I think if Chick-fil-A would run our country, everything would be Oops, did I say that out loud? Did I violate one of my three rules already?
You may have.
I may have violated one of my three rules. Oops, I have to have some more coffee.
Chick-fil-A is top notch though. Can't disagree.
Any four-legged friends? I can't remember.
No, so we don't have any pets at the moment. That's kind of the, we only live in 500 square feet at the moment, so we don't really want any four-legged friends. I absolutely do, though, so once we move, that's going to be my biggest push. So my wife and I just come from two different backgrounds. I grew up with pets my entire life, and my wife did not at all. So it's two different perspectives, so we'll hopefully meet.
How's that going?
You know, I mean,
They don't have pets.
Yeah, we don't have pets yet, so ask me when we move, and we'll go from there, I guess.
That was a bit of a rhetorical question,
Yes.
Smith. Nice job. Nice job. So look, usually on Mondays we kick off what's been kind of happening in the market the last week. I've been trying to look at some month-over-month stuff. In other words, this month versus 2022 versus 2021. Eventually, I want to get into, because what we're so excited about having you guys join us and be part of our team, frankly, is your age and your energy and all this stuff. So we want to talk a little bit about millennials and what impact we're going to have on the market. But before we do that, I was crunching some numbers this morning, and I'll just pull some things apart pretty quickly. January 2022 versus 2021, just in Nelson County alone, just to pick that one, which is really interesting. This time last year, we were talking about how Nelson County was rocking and rolling. This time last year, there was 33 homes sold. This January was only 19. So that's a substantial cut. And the sales price remained a little flat. So it was about 368 this year and 365 that was remained a little flat. So I don't know what's going on out in Nelson County, but of all the 5 jurisdictions, that was the one that kind of days on market went reverse. Number of units, went in reverse. So I don't know if anybody wants to jump in and see if they have any experience or thoughts out there on that. And then I just want to really know, you guys are rock stars. What does it mean to be a millennial in this market? Whoever wants to jump in.
Well,
You jump in.
one, to be a millennial is competitive. I think that the way that just how we are constructed, you have social media, you have 1,000,001 people all chasing their dreams, and everyone wanting to make their dreams come true in the form of real estate. So that has driven the market. Last year was bananas, I think, as you all can imagine, and furthermore, super competitive. The most dreaded question for a lot of my transactions was, how many offers do you already have? Because that would oftentimes let me know if this was something really going to happen or not. So being a millennial, in
So
one
you're
word,
saying
is
when you're
competitive.
representing buyers and you're talking to the seller's agent, you're asking how many offers do they have in the mix?
Yes, and every time it was multiple, like upwards of 4 to 5. And I'm pretty sure you saw more than that at times.
Yeah, I mean, there were, I think I think it was like 12. I just did one. I had buyers go after a house this past weekend, and there were 9 offers on the table. So,
Get out. In what window of time?
2 days,
Get out.
3 days, something like that. See, I think the house went on Friday morning, and they had 9 offers. I think, actually, it was been like 24 hours. I think by Saturday evening, they had 9 offers.
What was the price point? Can I ask that?
Low 300s.
Yeah, that's hotcakes.
Yeah.
So I'm actually reading a report that came out on January 19th, and it was a combination between Reese Media and 2 other organizations on that end of it. 51% of the millennials, this is strictly millennials, felt stressed and anxious, and the most common concern was centering around availability and affordability. So you guys, I'm not a millennial, I'm a boomer.
3
Right.
millennials at the table, 1 boomer.
Oh, and 1 boomer.
Yeah.
You got this.
Not Boomer the Boomer, but
Boomer Esiason.
the other Boomer. But so how help me navigate this stress conversation with a millennial, right? I am representing a millennial to buy. They're stressed out. Tell me how we manage this. How do we manage this conversation?
Well, what we do best as realtors, be transparent
Okay.
and be upfront and let them know exactly what you're working with. So, like, we make dreams come true, but we cannot make anything unrealistic happen. And I think that creating a clear path of communication with your client, at least that's been my experience, regardless of the affordability aspect, regardless of the availability, having a clear landscape as to what's going on has always made that very smooth for me. So really just talking, telling what it is, and letting them know you don't have all day to make all of these decisions, but we're not rushing you. Just be cognizant of what the market we're in. At least that's my experience.
So normally at this point,
That's a great answer.
it's a great answer.
Yeah.
Normally at this point, I'd pick up my iPhone, which I don't have with me, so because I left it in the car and I'm having a bit of a stressful moment about it.
It really is that.
I am really stressed out about this. But normally I would pick up my iPhone at this point, and just to follow up on that answer is that it really takes people. You know, the iPhone, all this stuff that we have with these apps are great, but this making people feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that, Christopher?
Well, I think for me, it's about having a conversation and really, I think, one, figuring out what the goal is of the buyers at that point, and then from there, it's figuring out if they've been pre-approved or not pre-approved and getting them in touch with a fantastic local lender, and then from there, really figuring things out. And one of the conversations I always like to have with people is, you know, we need to know what the top end of your budget is, but more importantly, I want to know what you feel comfortable spending every month. Because I always say, look, you're the one making the payment, not me. So I'll show you whatever house we need to see, and we'll fight for it the best we can, but I need you to feel comfortable spending, you know, $1,500 a month compared to if we go to the top end of your budget, which could be, you know, $1,800 or something. It's your money, and you've got to figure out what makes the most sense financially. And then from now, you know, with the market the way it is, just sort of like Jason's talking, I'm super realistic about things. And then I also just try to break down what they're looking for and maybe where they're looking. And then from there, you can gauge the conversation of, you know, it may not be the most realistic thing for us to be looking, you know, in this part of Charlottesville because you're going to.
Or even now.
Yeah. Because you're going to get priced out, or, you know, maybe it doesn't make sense because you're going to blow your entire savings account for a down payment, and then you're not going to have any cash in the bank.
It's interesting you should say that. According to this report, 82% of the millennials have more than $10,000 in savings. That's a 25% increase over last year, and 1/3 plan to put less than 20% down. Mm-hmm. So what we're seeing is millennials are saving more money, and this whole fallacy of having to put 20% down is really not there, right? It's usually a little bit less. So
I'm curious of the fallacy and how it may change in such a competitive landscape, because we're seeing a lot of cash coming to the table, not just cash offers to purchase a real estate outright, but people that are upticking down payments to make their offers more competitive. And in some circumstances, they're having to make the difference up of appraised value that the lender's willing to go forward with, and that delta of bringing additional cash. So is that 20% going to become more of a reality as the real estate market becomes even more competitive moving forward? We're under inventory, and we have 25 million millennials ready to jump into the real estate market that are itching to, as Jason Taylor said, the American dream. Your thoughts, JT?
Yeah. I think the best way you can describe it, I could see it trending towards being a bidding war. Interesting point that I wanted to circle around was you were speaking to how much they want to pay on the front end in their mortgage. Well, one of the stats that I read actually was a big reason like millennials have purchased homes in comparison to boomers is 44%, I believe, of millennials purchase homes for understanding that it could be a potential investment, whereas 44% of boomers buy homes because of the interest rate. So it's like the same thing. Ultimately, it's like, okay, what's the best bang for my buck? But what perspective am I looking at?
Yeah.
So understanding that millennials are very much here now. Once back to the culture, everything is popcorn culture. 5 seconds,
Immediate.
it's ready.
Yeah.
Immediate. Super gratification 5 minutes ago. Well, it's the same thing with a home purchase. I'm willing to throw the house at it, no pun intended, because I realize I want it now, and if I can get it, even if it doesn't maybe make the most sense, if I have the means, I'll make it happen because I believe in it so fervently. So that's something
That's a
we
great
have.
take.
And also another thing that millennials, to go a step back, we didn't deal with 2008. I know I was sitting in high school, so I was like, "What is this thing going on?" Oh man, like so. There's a perspective of I know Keith uses the term recovering builder. I haven't had to be a recovering builder.
So you haven't gotten stung yet?
Not yet.
So
not
your
yet.
perspective is not jaded with housing, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
It's
So I
another
think
great
that
take.
So
to go
that's
up.
interesting because the younger millennials say that, the older millennials
Exactly.
say the opposite, right?
Well, that's because there's a statistic in there, and I can't think of what the.
Don't you be pointing it on my.
I'm an
nose.
older
Hey,
millennial.
I read all of the stuff, Keith. I came prepared.
Now that this is the point to say, did you retain any of that?
But I think the Keith's point is exactly right, and that's what I was going to say. So for me, I'm a younger millennial where, I watched everything happen, and I mean, I understood it to an extent, but not like that much. And I didn't watch any of my immediate family members really get super impacted on the housing market from 2005 to 2008. But I imagine that there's probably a good amount of older millennials that may actually have watched that. Or, maybe you saw your parents buy a house from 2004 to 2006, and then the
I
market
think that's the
crashed.
I really don't know the reason why they split the millennials up.
Yeah.
Maybe because
They
there's
do all generations. All generations
Oh.
are split up like that.
So we got older boomers, younger
Yeah,
boomers.
it's just because it's such a wide. I mean, we're talking like 18 age in a generation.
Got it.
So they're split up. All of them are.
So as an older millennial, Jerry, do you feel the same way as the younger millennials?
I've very much experienced. So I launched this business 14 years ago in a recession. So I very much remember what it was like for the housing market crashing economies and impacting other stratospheres of business that I was a part of. And also many people who watch the program know that, I have some real estate. And I'm very mindful of what the market dynamics are. I'm curious of Christopher and Jason's take on this question. Do you guys frankly, your millennial bracket, especially you guys, are going to be the most powerful buying dynamic and buying demographic in America. Do you guys see real estate as home sweet home, fall in love, stay there forever, raise kids? Or do you see it as a commodity? Let's stay there, let's build some equity, let's trade up, and let's keep climbing the wealth ladder. Because, a lot of folks see the home as, I'm in love with this.
Yeah.
Or do you see it, Jason, as let's chase the paper here? What are your thoughts?
Well, my personal experience buying a home was for my family.
Okay.
There was some financial benefit sprinkled in, but primarily it was for my family. Chris, what about you? Where are you at from your perspective? What do you and your wife are intending to do?
We're in not a weird place, but we have a lot of conversations about real estate, and we are almost, and there's actually last week reading an article that there's a good amount of millennials that are actually looking at buying an investment property or a secondary home before they even buy their own first home to live in. And that's kind of where we're at a little bit of, do we buy an investment property, take advantage of some lower interest rates, make it a long-term investment or Airbnb is, depending on where it's at, and just kind of bank the cash from that? Or do we buy a house, use a low down payment? My goal ideally is to use the first one or two houses that we would end up living in for the next however many years, and then continue to own those, have those in investment properties, and then maybe look for home sweet home. I think my wife's the one that's really looking for sort of like home sweet home, some,
Raise
yard
the
for the
kids.
kids,
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And not that I don't want that, but at the same time, the other wheel turning in my head is like, okay, how can we buy like another house to get an investment property? and
So
all
it's
that stuff?
it's interesting. Nearly 1/3 of the millennials, according to this report, so 31% of it, not quite a full 1/3, will stay in their home for less than 5 years.
Yeah.
The national average now
It's 10.
is 10.
Yeah. So that's the national average is 2x more than what the largest buying pool is mindset ready to do.
Yeah.
And so I think along Jerry's thought and everybody's thought is I think this is a hybrid, right? It's never just, we've been in this business all long enough to know it's never just one thing, right? It's always multiple things. I think you need your love place, your place of love, but also as trusted advisors, we need to help guide our client through and say, okay, look, you can look at maybe turning this into investment property in 5 years and then use this as your pool, your revenue pool, and move forward, or you can sell it and cash out because you got a job relocation or something along those lines.
Well, and I think it depends on the millennial. And, I would say for me, it's most of the people that I'm looking at and we're trying to find a place to buy, they're looking for that place to call home and raise a family. And I would say the last couple people that I've helped are looking more from a turn of being there for 10 years or more because they have a couple kids or they're about to start a family. So they're looking from that aspect of like, we're going to be here, we'll build the appreciation. And then, however many years down, we'll look at selling and then potentially upsizing when we need more space.
We love doing data, we love doing numbers, and we love plowing into reports. And this particular one report that's just focused solely on millennials, a couple of things. 82% more than boomers would purchase a fixer-up. So millennials would buy a fixer-up over me, right?
But read that next part.
The next part of that
Dude came prepared.
He's got a great memory. 1 in 4 regretted it.
Yeah.
Right? So have you guys experienced any of that recently where you've helped somebody buy and they've kind of regretted it? And we're going to talk about why they're regretting it.
Great question.
Why they're regretting it.
I have not had somebody go, hey, I regret buying this house. I try to have the whole, like, this house needs work conversation prior to either looking or as we are looking at properties. I think that a lot of people see HGTV, fixer-upper, all that stuff, and they're like, well, yeah, it's super easy to blow a wall out, do all these things and whatever else, and then
Chip and Joanna.
Yeah, and then you have the conversation with them. We're like, well, do you know if that's load bearing? Do you know how to install floors? Do you understand how these things work? And then it's like, well, not.
It's months to get a sub to come to your house to do any work.
Exactly. Yeah, and right now it's like you still have a hard time getting materials, and then it's like, okay, so do you want to put your family through living through a renovation either? Because I've heard a lot of people want to like kill each other after they've started to.
They made a couple of movies about that.
That's true. They have.
Yeah. They made a couple of movies. If you're going to renovate something, if you think it's going to cost you $1, it will cost you $2, and if you think it's going to take you 1 month, it'll take you at least 2 to 3 times. Yeah. But interesting, when you take a deeper dive into these numbers, why? And we always talk about it on the show, right? The 5 pillars, right? Location, price, features, condition, and timing. 40% of it was location driven, right? That 40% of the reason why they regretted their purchase. That's a huge percentage out of 100 to do that. The second largest one was bad neighbors. The third largest one was a neighborhood charged too much. But none of this was, I paid too much for the house. It was more location driven, right? So that's why location matters, right? It's been the axiom for 35 years since I've been doing this. Thank you for smiling.
Let's get Jason in the mix. What's on the brain over there? I see the wheels turning over there. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Since you said.
As a Laker, you live in Lake Monticello, one of the hottest neighborhoods in Central Virginia. Dude, you could sell your house all day, every day, any day with a Y.
Yes.
At the end, you could sell this house.
So, like, I could do a humble pitch. Lake Monticello is a phenomenal community that offers a little bit for everyone. If you like to golf, you can golf. If you like to swim, you can swim. If you want to go to a beach and see a beautiful sunset, it's there for you too. But no, in all seriousness, the experience that I've had with people buying in the lake, one, I have fortunately not run into anyone that wants to renovate. And my rule of thumb is, if I wouldn't live in here, I will not suggest that you live in here unless you're really sure you want to live here. So anything that I can find that is to be desired or opportunities for the property, I usually am in direct link with the listing agent, and then from there we're trying to work out what's realistic. But as far as like renovating, I've been fortunate enough to not deal with anybody that wants.
But you got the numbers part of it, right? So in Fluvanna County, same month, January 22 to 21, the sales price went up $58,000 year over year. Last year it was $264. This year it's $322.
So what'd he sell? would you, and your wife is watching, or your fiance is watching, Pam, just share the show. Michael, is it Dufour?
Yeah, Mike Dufour.
My man Jason, dropping knowledge right here on the show, watching the program right here.
Hey, fam. Hey, Pam.
You got Jade Wharton.
Yes,
watching the
Jay
program.
Wharton. Jay Wharton. Yes. Hey, sis.
You
Hey,
got
sis.
Edward Taylor Jr.
Hey,
family,
Eddie. Salute, Mr. Taylor. Taylor gang. Okay.
watching the program.
Yes.
So would you guys sell? You could sell your house all day, every day. Would you sell?
Well, the way that the market is going, I think we're going to stay set for a while. You know what I mean?
There's-
See how
where
things
would you
plans
go
out.
is-
Yeah, really.
the follow-up.
That's the real question. Where will we go? And right now, we're stable. We moved in November of 2020, so we're relatively, or excuse me, November. Of
Bought at a
2020.
great time.
Yeah, it was a beautiful time. Everything went really smooth, and I have had no complaints. But I would say we're not selling anytime
So, Christopher, how do you handle the where am I going to go question? I called you up. I want you to list my house, right? I'm ready to sell it. I can get the most amount of money from it.
Yeah.
How do you handle the where am I going to go? How are you going to help me navigate that?
Well, I guess first it's where are you trying to go?
Wanna go.
You know, are you staying local or are you not? And then if you are staying local, I think it's a conversation of, you know, as a seller, you can try and work the deal a little bit that you can rent the house back. You know, if you close March 15th, you could always rent the house back for X amount of time to the new owner until you find a new property. You could also make it a contingency that you have to find a property in order for you to sell your house. You know, that works and doesn't work. You know, you may leave somebody waiting for a little bit depending on the market. I mean, there's a couple different avenues you can kind of take to try and figure something out.
How about sell and rent? You having that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I have that conversation. I just know the rental market's super tough right now too. So it's
good Lord.
kind of like you could sell your house, but we may not find a place for you to rent either, or it's going to be pricey to find a place to rent and what you'll be paying.
So the way this is just how we started the conversation. This is about sitting around at a kitchen table with the family or whoever, and what is your goals and objectives? What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Right? You know, in my case, we need to downsize, right? We need to be out of 3,600 square feet, 2 acres. I don't need this home any longer. You know, and then talk about, okay, great. So this is what your needs are. Let's take a look at what we can find you. And patience, right? It's the same as on the buyer side, on the you know, because you all of a sudden are going to become a buyer. I do want to switch it back to the lake though, because you got me thinking. I've been there since 1987. So what made you pick the Lake Monticello? You and your family. What made you pick that as a place to move to?
Well, where we were living before was off of Hydraulic Road.
Okay.
Like not far from Albemarle High School. That experience on that busy road was one that we don't want to relive.
Because of the kids?
We have kids. We have a million cars driving by the home. It was just really, really noisy. Wasn't a pleasant experience. Cuddle time at night was hard. It was just a mess. So basically, we're doing our search, and at the time, to be super transparent, Charlottesville was priced way out of our market, like way out of our market, and that did not seem feasible. But to get something that made sense for my family, like 3 children and 2 dogs, and nobody's upset when they walk around the house because we're all packed, like, you know, really close together. That was the last thing that we wanted. So to be able to find something in the price range with every amenity I could ask for, my kids can conceive it, they can achieve it, they can go outside, have a blast. Anything we can think of to keep them entertained, aside from an iPad, that's what the lake provides us. Like, it was so many things that were intangible about the lake that probably coming off of living off of Hydraulic Road, we wanted to break from that.
Great take again.
And that's where I wanted to go with that, right? This is, you know, Lake Monticello A is affordable in today's context.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of folks don't talk about the assets there, right? What one can do. Christopher, you want to jump in? What can I do if I want to move into the lake with my kids?
Oh gosh. Well, I think there's 5 beaches at Lake Monticello. There is, I guess, the clubhouse, a pool. They also have a restaurant and a bar there. Actually, that's been renovated within the last.
They just spent $4 or $5 million to update it. Plus, we got a bunch of playgrounds and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. 18-hole golf course.
Yes.
I can't remember what par it is. It's a decent golf course. I've played there many times.
And one of the neat things about that a lot of folks don't talk about is there's like 13 restaurants around the perimeter of Lake Monticello.
Oh yeah.
Right. We have the busiest food lion in the state of Virginia.
That place is packed
Certainly,
all the
man.
time.
Certainly.
Well, Wahoo Barbecue, they just took over the old Dogwood
That's
restaurant,
right.
and that's
Well,
good.
good-
That's
good for
that's
you.
good barbecue. Yeah.
So,
A lot of comments coming in too.
Go ahead.
You want to go comments? You want to finish that one?
No, go ahead. Come on. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee.
A lot of comments from realtors watching the program. First, we'll acknowledge the better 7/8s
Uh-oh.
watching the show here. Pam Garrison giving you some love right here. Multitasking but not missing a second. Great stuff right here. Will Blue, you guys are dropping knowledge gems right now. R.D. Douglas giving some props. Arthur King starts the third. Proud of you, JT. So let's go to Avenue and Paul McCarter watching the program. Paul,
Hey,
we
Paul.
like when you contribute to the program. We also have a mortgage broker and Emily Coulter watching the show. So these comments. This is from Bill that led to a chain of comments. Bill McChesney. When we purchased our home in 1987, we had signed an agreement with the lady that was the seller. Her listing realtor came to her after that with a higher cash offer with no contingencies. The seller was honorable and said no to the deal on cash, and she stuck with us. And then Bill asked, would that happen today? And then Paul responds to that by saying, if there's a signed agreement, then the seller doesn't have the option. That's the danger of verbal agreements. And then Emily responds to that by saying, first Paul says, plus many of the most popular loan products that younger buyers use don't work well for a true fixer-upper. I was on the fixer-upper comment. Emily, who's in the mortgage business, this is so true. I have this conversation with folks weekly. And then Paul adds, selling in a seller's market to get the benefit only to buy in a seller's market is a horizontal move. If you wouldn't be selling anyways, such as outgrowing the house, empty nesting, relocating, then selling now just to buy locally may not be wise. From Paul of Avenue. Thoughts on any of this stuff?
Oh,
guys?
my God. You have to pick that apart.
And there's a lot more too. There's a lot more as well.
Yeah. So, it's funny you should say that. I brought this up in the show a couple of times. We're having conversations with my parents. They're in their early 80s, and we're very fortunate. Hopefully they'll come in and move in with us. And I'll dig up here somewhere in the stat here, but that number is increasing.
Yeah.
Year over year on that end of it. So there's a little wiggle room in that. Can you just go over the contract question real quick again? Because I want to make sure I got my notes right on that, because I want to answer that.
So the contract thread acknowledged the importance of having a written contract versus a verbal agreement.
Correct.
And I think that one was clear cut. Look, if it's a written contract, the seller's going to have to move forward with what's in writing, as opposed to a verbal agreement. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, that could be shopped around.
Well, the reality of it was the home is under contract, period. End of story. It's in a written contract, done, finished. Now, if that should fall apart for whatever reason,
Then you can have backups.
then you can have backups and you can reach out to that. But, that is not only the right thing to do, but it's the legal thing to do at that end of it.
I think the better one with Paul and Emily for you, the pros to highlight, is Paul's comment and Emily, who's in the mortgage business, agreeing many of the most popular loan products that younger buyers use do not work well for a true fixer-upper. And Emily Ann Coulter, who's in the business, this is so true. I had this conversation with folks weekly. That's a topic to cover right there on the show.
Absolutely. I know for myself, we leveraged the FHA, first-time home buyers loan. So that was very run-of-the-mill. There was nothing that we did additionally for that. I can't remember exactly what it is. Is it a 501? Or what is
No,
the
there's a
renovation?
203,
203, yeah.
something like that.
Whereas,
Yeah,
like,
and
they have those
Scott,
benefits, but
Scott
that wasn't-
Morris will be able to help us.
That wasn't anything
But
that we
look,
were even looking into. So.
and I come from this my background on this stuff. You're unless you're fit a very specific model, right? You have the expertise, right? You have the resources, the capital resources to do this. What the best thing to do is get yourself into a home, start this process, get into your 5 years, get a little bit of wealth building going on, and then maybe take a look at that at a second thing. That's a huge leap to do it. I've built 600 homes in my career, and I wouldn't do it. I would not get into it. Now, if I had the capital to do it, and I didn't have to live in it, I didn't have to do all that kind of great stuff, that's one thing. But, the best advice we could give somebody is, get a home, check as many boxes as it can check for you. Get into the game, right?
Yeah.
And then 5 years from now, sell it and either retain it as a rental or move forward.
Well, and I think, and in part of that statistic, the number, but was it 81% of millennials have $10,000 or more
Yeah, it's
in their
roughly 80
savings
something.
account? So, I mean, I think for most millennials factor, you're probably going to spend a decent chunk of your savings in order for a down payment and or closing costs. And plus, the other inner workings, home inspection, appraisal, and a few other things. So once you've done that, I mean, you're still talking, you're going to need another whatever you need to do to the house from $1,000 to $50,000, which I would probably think that most millennials.
So let's quantify what we're talking about. We're not talking about painting the wall, right? Right. We're not talking about swapping out a rug, right? We're talking about
We're not talking about changes in cabinet fronts. We're talking about moving walls and demolition and expanding houses and remodeling.
Yeah.
And that ain't easy. We represent some remodelers, as you know. And these folks are booked months out.
So literally
Months out.
the conversation we're all having, they want to look at uninhabitable structures.
Yes.
Really, I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
how
yeah.
bad it is. Let's look at an uninhabitable structure and what does it
And
take?
Chip and Joanna it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just take a bulldozer and knock it down.
Well,
it depends on the
No,
house.
Christopher, you're not too far from where I think we might be going. You might want to finish that train of thought.
Well, I mean, depending on the house and the cost of it, I mean, sometimes the house could be in complete disarray or just terrible that it's going to cost you more money to try and redo the entire thing from top to bottom compared to, I don't know the cost of getting a bulldozer, but, tearing the entire house down, using that parcel of land to then just create a new house. So, I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but I don't.
At this point, it's happening. It's happening at Lake Monticello. It's on the higher end stuff, waterfront homes that were built in the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
This is cash. Typically, they're going to tear them down. They're going to hire a builder and go ahead and do it. If Jerry doesn't have anything on the
No, keep going. There's
feed,
a lot on the feed, but you guys finish your thought, please.
I wanted to pivot a little bit
Okay.
because this is of all the stats that I read this weekend, this was the one that really put me on my heels because it's substantially different than what it has been in a while. On average, millennials are I'm going to read it, looking for homes that are about 1,700 square feet. That's a significant decrease from last year when the average millennial sought 2,400 square feet. So it's almost half.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, guys?
I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, well, for your standpoint, you have a family.
I had to go up.
So you had to get square footage. And the way I look at, for at least us, when we're looking at buying a house, I personally want a little bit more square footage. One, because we plan on trying to have kids. But secondly, we don't really have a space to be able to entertain. So for us, we would like a little bit more square footage to actually have people over and family visit and do all that stuff. And I think the big number here is because of the pandemic and things that have driven people, a lot of millennials are going, I'm not going to sit in my house. I'm going to go outside or do X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to be there that much.
Yeah, so when I read that, I did what Forrest, our dog, did when I said I was thinking. He went, I went,
That surprised you?
that surprised me.
surprising.
That was a surprising stat, and I'd love to dig a little bit more into it because if you read the rest of the piece, it echoes what Christopher was saying, but. I see it as a competition problem too, because if really the millennials are wanting 1,700 square feet, guess what I want? I want 1,700 square feet, right? I don't need 2,400 square feet. I don't need that space any longer because I've been through this with the children, and I just need some place for the grandchildren to come in. But 1,700 square feet is a great number for us. But I'm curious what the feed has to say about that. I felt that to be, I just didn't quite understand that number.
Give the stat again. People are asking for that again.
Yeah, so according to these particular stats, on average, millennials are looking for homes that are 1,700 square feet versus last year they were looking at 2,400 square feet. So the same data last year was saying the millennial wanted 2,400 square feet. And, maybe it was because we were really in the middle of the pandemic. And it has been for years that the millennial wanted less. Right, and that was tracking up until pretty much 2020, 2021, where it kind of flipped a little bit. But literally in the course of 1 year, it's almost went in half, which I just felt that needs a little bit more digging.
I mean, this is just one man's perspective here. Emily, we'll get to your comments. We are live on every social platform, and the show is blowing up. You, Jason Taylor, clearly have a large sphere of influence on social media. I am seeing it on the feed right
Shout
here.
out, family. Y'all always
feed.
support.
Literally, I'm seeing it on the feed here, sir. Sincerely mean that. So I'm seeing, this is how my take on this, and then I'll get out of your guys' way. The homes are expensive is hell right now. And the bigger the home is, the likely is the more expensive it's going to be. And it's a sign of the market being so competitive, and people are having to drop what they want from a square footage standpoint because the housing costs went up. You know, and in early COVID, people wanted a bigger house so they could have that home office because there was this Zoom room mentality where we thought we were going to be working from home forever. And now maybe we're realizing that there's some light at the end of the tunnel, and being around the wife and the kids every day probably isn't the best thing for the marriage, okay? And I'm saying that, and I know my wife is watching right now, my son is watching, but let's cut to the chase. Maybe that's the case, and a little separation is good. So I don't know, that's one man's take. JT, jump in here.
You know, I will say there's been a trend, or like a term I've heard floating around, the Great Resignation.
Oh, yeah.
People are getting rid of like their everyday 9-to-5s and chasing their dreams. So if I have to downsize a little to pursue that dream or relocate my career because I'm not as tied to this building anymore, I think that could contribute. People are sacrificing like space for joy.
But I think the where matters. See, the where matters. You know, it's interesting. Year over year, the only jurisdiction that actually went down was Charlottesville. We actually went down roughly $28,000 in the median sales price between January 22 and January 21. There also was 22 units sold less. So they sold half of what they did, closed. These are closed units, and the number went down $28,000. I think a lot of this is maybe the square footage is smaller, but they want that 1/3 acre lot with the white picket fence, and you know, and that's where you get your separation. You know, go out like when I was growing up, you know, when the sun came up, get the heck out of the apartment. And when the sunlights came on, came back in. That's how that
real.
worked.
That's real.
A different world now, that's for sure.
Really, is it a different world? You wouldn't.
Well, I mean,
You're saying screen times now?
Well, I'm also just saying from like a safety perspective. So I just not to like date Keith at all, but like, you know,
You're gonna do it. You're gonna do it.
Yeah, I'm
anyway.
gonna do it anyway. So it was okay for Keith to run around and do whatever he was doing in New York.
Might have been okay for Keith, but the neighborhood was terrifying.
Of me.
Yeah, that's saying.
But I think
You know I love you, homie. You know I love you.
You know. Yeah. Somebody do me a favor. Google Brooklyn in the '70s, and that'll put it in perspective.
Yeah.
But
No, finish your thought there, Chris.
Well, and I think for like me and probably Jason as well, for us growing up as kids, like there was still that aspect of like get outside, do things, but there was also this like I needed to be in somewhat of a like stone's
Stranger
throw.
danger.
Yeah, stranger danger was a legit thing.
Yeah, for
maybe
sure.
not for Keith. Maybe he was a stranger. I don't know, but I'm just joking.
no, you're not.
But I think that's where like the
How about that stock market?
But that's where I think the difference is a little bit, and that's just with time, unfortunately, you know, and I think now it's even more, I think, a thing of where it's like you want to sort of make sure that the backyard is fenced in, so you know your kids are there, you always know where your kids are, and that type of thing, so.
That means a lot to my wife. I mean, she talks about backyard. When we bought our house, we immediately put a fence in there.
Sure.
She talks about sidewalks.
Yep.
And immediately knowing the neighbors around the house for safety for our son. So I think Christopher Eagle is absolutely on point here. Keith, jump in here.
Yeah, no. So that's an interesting thing. I don't have it with me because I read another report about amenities matter, right? So I think amenities matter more I mean, it may matter to everybody, but I think millennials in particular, and please, from your perspective, okay, we're kind of, God willing, we're on the back end of this COVID, right?
Yeah.
End of it, on the downward curve, hopefully of it. Okay, I got 1,700 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. I got a little bit of yard, but the rest of the amenities that are available to me are important, right? And they have something a little bit more important than the 3 bedrooms. And can you guys chat a little bit what's important to you guys and what you think is important to your generation?
I mean, I know, for one, the pandemic taught me the value of time, like in a major way. So I spend a lot of my day hustling and bustling, trying to get it. So when I come home to my kingdom, or we've been stuck in these kingdoms now for years, but when I get back inside, just the idea that somewhere in that local vicinity I can do something to de-stress, and I don't have to drive 30 minutes or risk my life in a room with 14 people. Things like that people took for granted before. I think that you have to put that at the forefront of your mind, and amenities make up for all of that. Especially, I can say, for Lake Monticello, you have certain buildings with all of our COVID guidelines being taken care of, or at least when everything was popping off. It was very tight, a very tight guideline as to, we won't have you here, we won't use these amenities, we want to keep you safe in our community, we're not letting additional people come in. So I know if our community is as tight and we enjoyed our amenities how it was, I can only imagine other ones. I mean, I did a stint in Eagles Landing. That was a long time ago, off of 5th Street, and I loved the basketball court there. It was a great amenity, and the swimming pool, and that was.
But you were at a different point in your life.
Oh man, I was a young kid then.
Were you single and ready to mingle?
I haven't been single ever. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yes,
over
sir.
here.
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, to his point, there's a reason why a lot of the neighborhoods, I mean, let's cut to the chase. The gated community neighborhoods have blown up.
Sure.
You got golf
Yes.
courses,
Yes.
tennis courts, swimming pools, hiking trails, stuff to do outside of the house during COVID.
Sure.
And they are blowing up. Look at the ones around the area.
Well, they're all blowing up, and I think, as Jerry's pointed out a couple different times, as this FLUM, as we're calling it, or the Charlottesville.
Future land use map.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Jerry's right. I think these gated communities are going to grow.
The HOA neighborhoods.
Neighborhoods. The other thing about where you're at personally, other than just being close to me, which is awesome,
Really cool.
but you can walk the Food Line,
Yes.
right? When I moved there in 1987, and this is one of the stories, one of my famous, I walked uphill both ways, but to buy milk, I had to go into Charlottesville, right? There was 300 houses. There wasn't all the stuff that's surrounding.
What house were you? What number house were you?
Excuse me? Oh, God.
You and Yona buying your house.
I don't know.
You built your house, right?
I built our house,
Yeah.
Yeah, built our house,
There's
yeah.
4,300 plus?
43 and change, yeah. There's a total of 4,500 lots, roughly 4,300. We're awfully close to 100% built out. Whatever's the rule of thumb is anywhere between 1% and 5% are just unbuildable anyway. So, if you do the math, we're pretty darn close to build out on that. But just to put it into perspective, right, that's what we used to do. We used to go to church on Sunday, right? We would go to church, we'd go food shopping, it was a whole different world back at that point.
What year did the Food Line go in? Just out of
Let me
curiosity.
see, I did the...
So you want to text Yona? Oh, you got to text. He knows I love him.
Got
He knows I love
him.
him.
Yes.
You know what it would have came in, right? Early 90s, right? Is that right? Mid 90s?
I don't want to play. I'm going to take my toys and go home.
Oh,
Give me my basketball.
Give me my stuff.
That's right. Singers are good for the show.
I'm going home. Yes.
Yona, when did it come in? When did that food line come in,
Well, I
Yona?
know I did the Acres in 97 and it wasn't there yet.
Okay, wow.
So it would sort of like 98, 99.
Okay.
That kind of range, somewhere around there.
That's a great
Wow.
stat right there.
Yeah,
Good trivia question.
somewhere around there. Yeah, great job on your fireplace trivia, by the way.
Thank you. Do you think, did that drive immediate value once the food line was built for the lake?
So there's a reason why I spent more than I should have for 150 acres that was adjoining where I knew Food Line was going in. So the answer is
When
yes.
you were developing?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah, we can see that as agents that work in it, right? If you're like Monticello, if you're close to gates, it has a little bit more value, right? Because it could take you a substantial amount of time to get from some of the intersections out that way. for JT and I, we're half a mile, 1 mile away.
Yeah.
You know, it's changed the dynamic. You know, we were working late the other night, 8 o'clock, called up Villanova Pizza, said, and by the time I left the office and got there, pizza was there, picked it up and go back there. You know, back in the day, right, you didn't have that, right?
Well, I mean, it's actually interesting to think about because I was trying to think in my mind here, and I was a kid in the 90s, but, I mean, you drove to Charlottesville where at that point, Pantops wasn't developed. For like half of Pantops, I don't think was developed, and then you would have maybe that Food Lion that was on Pantops, and then if not, you were going to like Kroger in town.
So we used to go to Giant.
That was
in
the one
town.
in town?
So we would go to the Giant, the one that isn't there any longer,
Yeah.
over, oh, good Lord, I'll remember it.
I can't think of what that shopping
Over
center
by
is.
by Whole Foods, what's the commercial section right next to Whole Foods?
Is that Seminole Square?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's where Giant was. That's where we used to go.
Yeah,
We used to-
really?
That's where you went. You
Yeah.
went to Giant. There was no Whole
It's
Foods.
so far from your house.
That's what we used to do. It was a Sunday thing. We would make a Sunday out of it and go ahead and do that. And it's funny. You know, I'm the elder statesman at the table here, but
But youngest in spirit.
thank you, sir. On
And that's why we love you, friend.
I love you all very much. But on Friday was Ragged Mountain Running Shop's 40th year, right? I've been here 35 years, so we've kind of been here a long time. And I was talking to Mark over the weekend. Yona's running the Charlottesville 10-miler, and she was doing a training thing. And I was like, hey, Mark, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And it was like, well, that's not here any longer. And it was just really, and Jerry's post about the fireplace was really reminiscent of, you know, we were just reminiscing about how much this has changed.
Oh yeah,
When
it's crazy. I actually had I had a friend of mine a couple weeks ago. She's from Northern Virginia, came to UVA, then went back to Northern Virginia, ended up back in Charlottesville, and she said, like, you've been here basically your entire life. Like, what's different? And I went, holy crap.
Completely different.
Yeah, I was like, lots different.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I can't really cherry pick something that was awful, right? It all really moved in a great thing.
Yeah.
Those who well, Yona and I are opera fans. We went to the opera at the Paramount to watch the Met done. When I first moved here, that was an abandoned building.
The only thing that you could, and this is tough to say.
You're talking traffic.
Well, not even traffic, but like the only thing that you cannot acknowledge that could be potentially a negative trend of how this area is boomed is the affordability index.
But that's always been that way, Jerry. When I first moved here,
It's gotten to the point where like a first-time home buyer may have an incredibly difficult time of buying a home in Charlottesville within 25 or 30 miles of it. I mean, thoughts?
I can agree.
Yeah.
But that was just my personal situation. I think that there's also a lot of millennials are coming into the job market being paid handsomely. And I mean, so I think that you have inflation, you have a lot of different factors that, you know, you can go on YouTube and come out making $2.5 billion a year. I don't know, it's dramatic, but you get the point. People are really figuring out a way to make money, and they're willing to put out more, but I just know I wasn't going to. So I think that could be an impact. What do you think?
well, hopefully there's still some mortgage folks
Yeah.
watching on that stuff. To put it in a little perspective, a little bit, just from the guy that's been around here the longest in this field. Thank you. You know, when Yona and I bought our first home, it was harder than heck to get funding.
Yeah.
It was 18% interest, right? It was harder than heck. The inventory was there, right?
Well, you built your home.
I built my home. I get that and all that stuff, but for helping other people, it was much harder to get money. So anybody who's in the mortgage business can take a look at it. It was extremely difficult to get money. I couldn't use my VA benefits because it was just so hard to get.
I got mine at 24. It was a condo. You speak of Eagles Landing. It was right around the Eagles Landing in the Villas of Southern Ridge.
Oh, okay.
It was 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 6 1/8 interest rate, and there was a ton of inventory available. Even at that 180, it was 180,
What year was that?
180 price point. I don't know, 20. I want to say it was like 07, 08.
Yeah.
Something like in that range right there.
I can-
And you look at that price point now, that doesn't even exist. That price point is what, like close to 4 now?
So correct, and Jon and I were talking on the way in. You know, again, if it's even at 4, it's even at 4.5, you know, or something. It's still historical low interest rates. But you know, in the late 80s and the early 90s, before you hit after 9/11, it was just hard to get money. So the inventory was there. It was just hard to get the money. So the affordability thing it just looked at it a little bit differently. And so, you know, the number was lower. We were also making substantially less money in this region.
To go back a little bit personally, growing up here, as well as having parents that are here, and then my grandparents grew up here and then lived here for a very long time until they retired, the conversation of Charlottesville always being expensive has always been a conversation. I've never not heard of the affordability aspect of Charlottesville ever being like, yeah, it's super cheap in Charlottesville. Like, I have only heard plenty of people go, it's expensive to live in Charlottesville. No matter if it was 1999 or 2022, I've always heard, yeah, it's expensive to live here.
So the follow-up would be, is that a bad thing? Or do we see that as we're fortunate in that we're insulated from national trends because we have UVA here and the economy is strong? And it just means we just have to, as JT said, hustle and bustle and make it happen.
I think it goes both ways. I think it's a bad thing in the sense of, you know, it's tougher for, say, first responders to live locally where they work. It's tougher for the teachers to do so, nurses, those type of positions. And
Well
people,
said.
I call that like the everyday hero, right? They go in and it's a thankless job for most of those positions. So it's very hard for them to live there, and I think that's the hard part.
But required jobs. Without them,
yeah.
Oh, backbone of the community
I
jobs.
mean, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have to have that stuff. But then from the other aspect, we are insulated. And, you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about, I mean, even during the pandemic, and then I've heard people talk about when the, what do you guys call it?
The time of great unpleasantness.
Yes, the time of great unpleasantness. We were still impacted, but we weren't impacted as much as a lot of other places in the country. So it's a great thing of where we are and how we're insulated. And, I mean, I think it goes both ways.
it impacted some folks greatly, but as a rule of thumb, it didn't impact us like, say, Florida, where it was just like everything.
Las Vegas.
Right.
Las Vegas
Yeah.
was a prime example. I want to change the gears a little bit here and see as millennials what you guys think about this, because this was the other stat that I went, right? 1 in 6 millennials would be willing to offer, now this is a national survey, right? 1 in 6 millennials would be willing to offer $100,000 or more above asking price.
I want to know who they were asking.
Yeah.
Is all I got. Like,
like,
who the heck?
man.
Yeah, do you guys like,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They just asked everyone in the NFL. this was a pro sports question because that is way above,
when I got up this morning and was preparing for today, I was like, should I ask that question? Should I not ask that question? But somebody must have asked this question of a bunch of millennials.
I mean, that's 17% of millennials. So that's below 1 in 5 right
Yeah.
there.
Either
Still
you're
a
asking-
decent
Still a
chunk.
lot.
You're asking
No.
people with deep pockets or that have not actually thought about buying a house.
Or are morons.
Yes.
So,
Right?
so let's forget about the $100,000 because I just don't think that. But are we seeing people paying more? Right, that's the better question. Are we seeing millennials paying a little extra money to get in the door in the first place, than to go, well, hold the time out, I'm going to back off for a little while? What do you guys think from a millennial's perspective?
I mean,
I'm seeing it from a perspective of, yes, they're willing to pay more, but they're also not willing to pay more than they think the house is worth.
Is that willingness to pay more an indication of desperation?
I don't know if I would call that desperation. I would just say I think it's just more of having to react to how the market is right now.
Good answer.
And
'Cause
it's
I
a
think-
buy. Oh, go ahead. Go
Well,
ahead.
and I think they talk about it in there too, is like the buying and the desperation. There's some millennials that are doing it, but it also, I think that's going to lead you down a road that you don't want to end up. If you have
Well, that's
to
why you
buy
need a
house.
trusted advisor.
Exactly.
That's
Buyer's
why we
remorse.
started this conversation off. It's about understanding is about getting at the kitchen table and saying, hey, we're not transactional people, we're relational people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is about, okay, are you sure this is really in your best interest to do at that point? I mean, the numbers are going up. These are NAR's numbers, first-time home buyers, which
NAR?
is National Association of Realtors. Thank you, sir. So first-time home buyers ticked up a little bit year over year and went from 34% of all the total sales from 31 the year before. The average first-time home buyer was 33. Right, so that's kind of where we're in the middle of this millennial.
Yep.
The repeat buyers, kind of more my age, right, 56 and up. And then 11%, that was the stat I was looking for earlier. 11% of last year's sales were multi-generational sales. Any thoughts, guys?
Well, I think just that multi-generational home part, I think that, and maybe this is just my family, maybe the millennials have had more parental support or just like historical support. I think that as time has gone, just as a society, we've like become more educated. So like there were things that like my grandparents, all respect to everything that they've contributed, just did not have the wherewithal because they were dealing with certain aspects of society. So you fast forward to like my parents and where it's like, okay, you guys did a certain thing for us, but now we have clarity to kind of like invest more into you. So I think it's probably a better trend of like you being able to say, here, you get a little help on a down payment, we can assist you. And then on the back end, kids are really in a thought process of, oh, let me actually help the person that has helped to sustain me.
It's funny you should say
so
that.
That could be a thought. I don't know.
No, it's funny you should say that because it's literally the conversation I'm having with my daughters about, hey, daddy, mom, when you get to be a certain age, what's your plan?
Yeah.
And, I don't think I ever had that conversation with my parents until recently. They're 20-something years older than I am now. And I don't think I ever... My children are 27 and our children are 27 and 35, and they're having those conversations with us now. So that's an enlightening statement. I never really thought about it that way, that maybe the millennial kind of gets it a little bit because they're both millennials. They're older millennials and younger millennials. So that's interesting.
Well, I mean, and we also grew up in this era of everything, as he said, this popcorn culture, this immediate culture where like, if you don't know the answer, you've got your phone and you can figure out the answer right away. And I'm not trying to like marginalize previous generations, but I wouldn't say your generation grew up with answers right on their fingertips immediately.
Oh, hell no.
Where like since I've been in, middle school and beyond, I could figure something out immediately without having to go to the library and to get a book and to figure it out or ask somebody for help. And I think the current can you imagine Generation Alpha? That's the generation of our kids. Dude, these people are going to be like rocket scientists.
Or is it going to cap out?
I don't think it's going to cap out.
I don't know,
innovation
man.
just gets better and improves.
Always. It's never a
Yeah,
stop point to innovation.
but I was going to grab my iPhone, but I don't have it.
I mean, before
this iPhone was awesome when it first came out. It's getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little better. But it wasn't as awesome as the first one. Does that make sense? As groundbreaking as the first one. Or
what are your thoughts on that? I mean, it can do a hell of a lot more things now.
Are we more immune to it? It doesn't mean that it's less stellar. It's just we take things for granted, right?
Yeah.
So could
That's
it
a good
be
take.
that we've been around it so long that now it's like it's just that good old phone. But if we didn't have it for 10 years, you get rid of the phones for 10
It's interesting. I think the number 10 used for a phone is an actual phone, right? Most
Very
people
true.
don't use them as a
The
phone.
number one way people are finding real estate now is the phone.
97%.
Social media and the internet.
browsers,
all
kinds of stuff. Yeah.
My cohort, of course, there busts my chops all the time, and not bust my chops. He offers a compliment that I'm a almost 60-year-old millennial.
You are.
But that's why 3 years ago I thought this was a great thing to do, that use this platform to get in front of folks, because that's what it is. And I'm really having a senior moment here because I can't grab my phone. I don't know what to do with it. Thanks, buddy.
I mean, dude,
Thanks.
there you go.
I feel so
It
much
creates
better.
anxiety not having it at your fingertips. People get anxious about that, legitimately.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed with your phone, buddy.
Dude, yeah, he's got the super deluxe phone over there.
The Pro 13.
I
Max.
see that.
Yeah,
That's
man.
super pip over
That's
there.
lovely, guys.
But we're joking around. We're having this, but in reality, during the show, I'd have my hand on this no matter what. So this thing is connected to me
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form on that end of it, and I'm relying on written notes. Thank God I printed them out, my little posties and my 3x5 cards and all this kind of great
Come
stuff.
prepared.
Well
prepared.
Yeah, I'm up against some rock stars here, so I needed to get my A game rolling here.
We just learning from you. That's
There
it.
you go. Thanks.
I'm just picking up your moves. I'm just
I don't know about
recycling the tricks. That's it.
Talk about importance of us at the table, right? National Association of Realtors. 87% of all the recently purchased used a real estate agent. So we're not going away, right? This iPhone, Android, whatever it is, I think ultimately is not going to replace us. Please, from a millennial's perspective, how do you feel about that? Do you really feel that our industry is in jeopardy because of that phone that I don't have in my hand, or it's just a tool? Talk about that.
I think it's just a tool. The one thing that you can never replace is human connectivity. The root of what we do is relationship building. It has nothing to do with homes. Obviously, the home is like the end all be all. It's the end result. But everything that I'm doing from the moment I meet you to whenever I don't know you anymore, because we stay in contact with people for a while, is building that relationship, making it stronger, seeing who you are, asking about your family, you knowing about mine. So as long as we have minds and hearts, we'll exist, because that's what drives our business. It's not just our expertise. Now, that's a great deal of it. We are all SMEs. So don't get me misunderstood, but definitely the heart of our arena is the heart within it, I feel.
Christopher, what do you think?
It's a tool. I mean, I think, at least, especially with the millennials, you know, they use it as a tool, and they use it to find houses. And half the time, I feel like they're finding houses on the market even before I can at this point, because they're looking all the time and they have their phone attached to them. But, you know, I think millennials are definitely a generation of people that also are tied to loyalty and trust and brand. So
Brand conscious.
Yeah, and as soon as they know that you are that person that they want to entrust to help them buy a home, I mean, it's a text message, email, phone call that they're always going to lean on you for. And as much as the phone can help you in Google searches and all that stuff, they don't know the inner workings of the market. They don't know the inner workings of what's happening, and, you know, all the different things that you have to have going on within an actual transaction. And I think, I've always heard the term, you know, you would not go perform brain surgery on yourself. You would go get a trusted doctor to do so. So why would you try and buy a home or sell your home yourself when you can legitimately go get a trusted person?
90% of the millennials would use their agent again. That's that loyalty, that's trust you've established it. I love helping first-time buyers. I really love it. It's my passion, and what we do. And I have about 50% of our sales last year were millennials, and every time I sat down with a millennial, they literally put that phone away. And they want to be guided. They want to be, you know, they know better than I do. Some of the stuff in there is kind of BS, right? And
Talking like the Zillow's estimates and the algorithms that Zillow says that homes are valued upon.
or just the internet in itself, right? Yeah. Just Googling, right? You can Google Keith is awesome and get multiple opinions on that.
Different Keiths too. So I don't
different Keiths on.
Keith is awesome.
Thank you. But I have found they use this as a tool. That's has been my experience, and I'd love to take this conversation a little further from a millennial's perspective. Just forget about houses. You're gonna buy. I was going to say stereo. I don't know. Do they make stereos any longer? Do they
In
not?
some countries.
maybe at antique stores. That's where you can find stereos.
They call turntables. They call turntables.
Stereo.
Stereo. Okay. Electronic equipment.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
What is electronic?
Well, y'all like, what is that now? I'm not sure.
Okay. A widget. Buy something. Right? You're going to research on that stuff, right? Okay.
I'm sorry. Oh, man. Yes.
How about them Mets?
No, yes.
Those Mets are great, man. They're doing big things.
Anyway, to your point, though. But
No, I don't want to do it anymore.
No. Bring it back.
No. But I guess the point I'm trying to get at is I have these conversations with my daughters, right? They use the phone for navigation. They use the phone for research. They use the phone for review or work on it. And particularly with my daughter, we helped buy a home up in Connecticut. She says, okay, now tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Right? And I find with millennials that gets to that point, that it gets this overload of so much information, interpret it. Tell me what this means. Tell me what, not necessarily tell me what to do because that's my daughter, but the buyer will say, okay, what does this mean? What's my next steps? What
Yep.
should I be doing?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Do you guys think that way as millennials, or I'm trying to pull a conversation out
I
of
mean,
this?
I will say personally, I'm that guy. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I want you to guide me through. My whole life has been internet screens, books, trying to get the information on my own. I mean, if I can't get it from you on the phone, 9 times out of 10, I'll go to YouTube and watch somebody walk me through it.
Me too.
So, if I can't get it from you in person, I'll get it from somebody on screen in video form that's going to spell it out the same way. Because
Same way for me.
Yeah. So, what you think? What do you think, Chris?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think from the realtor perspective, a lot of the millennials that I'm showing houses to, the phone is not present. It's in their purse. It's in their pocket.
Oh, wow. Talk
Because
about
it's
that.
well, it's like I don't need the phone for me to take a look at this entire thing. And the person that's here with me, the realtor, is the one that's providing me the information. Maybe they have a piece of paper that has information on the home, or maybe there's a brochure at the home. But they are trying to, really see how the house is, how it fits, and the phone doesn't really play an aspect. And then they want to have the conversation with me about, what do you think about the kitchen? What do you think about the price and the comparisons of the market and the neighborhood and all that stuff? So they want to, be able to see that stuff, and the phone really isn't a part of us until basically we leave, and then, I have a question. or they
So
have a
could
question.
it be, because this is an observational thing I did the other day. I was walking on the downtown mall, and there just was observation. Could it be me, the boomer, and up are more attached to that than the millennial is?
I mean,
I don't know. I think it's everybody.
I think everyone is attached to it.
It's a sickness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sickness.
Yeah,
It's an
it
addiction.
really is. It
Sickness
really
is probably
is.
a better word. It's a
Yeah.
sickness.
Well, I think
Yeah.
so. To the other part of the question, like,
But is it a necessary evil now?
yes,
I mean, I don't think I would say if anyone out there did not have an iPhone in their hand, they would be at a disadvantage to someone who did in a competitive landscape. I mean, this is
Yeah.
more powerful than the first spaceship that landed on the moon.
So
Think about that.
I rarely am behind a laptop. Everything I do is on my iPhone. That's the reason I'm freaking out right now, because I don't have it here with me. So I do my emails, I do my text, I do my searches, I communicate with my clients, I write. I can do everything I need to do on my iPhone.
yes.
I've got the not such good as you do, but I got an iPhone. So that has changed quite a bit. Again, historical context. My first phone was in 1992.
Was it in a briefcase?
No, that was
That leather bag that
no.
plugged in the car.
No, this was a Radio Shack. It was the size of a car battery. The thing was this. It was about 6 inches wide, a foot tall, about a foot wide, with the phone clicked on top of it. It was literally the size of a car
Did
battery.
you use it
I did use it.
all the time?
No, because there was only a few people you could call.
Well, I was
at
going to
that
ask
point.
who you calling
at that point in time. I will tell you, I broke my back twice. The first time I broke it was in '92, and if I didn't have that phone to hit 911 on the top, I would have not had the ambulances come and get me. So it paid off in '92.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Paul McCarter of Avenue. Paul, we love when you contribute to the show. It can be valuable to know the tendencies of a demographic, but it's very important to know each person is different.
There you go.
And how they approach home buying and selling, and
Oh,
what
yeah.
kind of support they need.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys
100%.
have to be malleable and adaptable to the folks you're working with.
Oh, yeah.
And how much of your job is like therapist and expectation setting? I mean, Christopher, that's for you right there.
A lot. I mean, I've had.
That's your job, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had clients crying. I've had clients ecstatic, sad, depressed. I mean, you get so many waves of emotions depending on the process and what's happening with those people, and especially buyers. They get very attached and emotionally attached to trying and find a house or get a house, and it can be a rough road, and you try and coach people and you guide them as best you can, and you're a support system for them. And sometimes you just don't know what the emotions are going to come out. So it's, yeah, I mean, I feel like I have a, bachelor in therapy at this point.
And we're expected to be the calm one.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's our job. Our job is
Yeah.
to be the calm one, because when there's a meltdown happening, right,
Yep.
and it 9 times out of 10, it's going to happen for whatever reason.
Especially in this market.
We had one happen over a couch this weekend, right?
What, they wanted the couch to convey?
There was a misunderstanding between what was staying and what was going. And those who are in our business, we all know we hate to mix personal property with real property.
Yes.
And but in any event, there was this meltdown that we navigated while I was trying to watch Mahomes win.
And did you do it? Did you navigate it?
Of course, that's what we do.
Yeah.
We navigated. We brought all the parties together and we navigated it, and we got it resolved, so we can close this week or something, whatever it's going to be. But yeah, so it's much more. And thank you, Paul. And that's what we tried to start in the beginning of the conversation. It's not money. It's not. All these things are super important, but what is important to you and your family? What is important to you and your wife? What is important to Jerry, his wife, and Trey on that end of it? What's important to Keith and Yona at this particular point in their lives? And what can we do to help navigate that way? And understanding, this is a little marriage we're going to enter into, right? And we're going to have to understand one another and be respectful and help us navigate that through. So did I do enough of my soapbox on that?
I think you guys did
That
great.
was great. That was great.
Why don't we close with this topic? And I'll throw this to you, Jason.
Okay.
And we'll acknowledge Kyrie Mosley for watching the program.
Hey, hello,
and giving
brother.
you guys some props. We'll acknowledge Quentin Beckham. Hello, my friend.
Hey,
Quentin Beckham.
QB.
Hey, QB.
Chris Harris, Johnny Gray.
Hey,
Talon
family.
Rice.
Yes.
Lisa Crawford watching the program. We'll acknowledge a lot of people. Shannon Willett.
Hey.
Cameron Eagle. Sandy McCann.
Nice.
Kelsey, is it Kuntz?
Yes, that's family. I don't want to.
Kelly
That's my
Shelton.
wife's side of the. Yeah. Okay.
Watching the program
Okay.
here. A number of states. Richmond, Virginia. Hello. Welcome to the program. Julian Fisher
Yes.
watching the program. So are you guys positive, lukewarm, or concerned about the 2022 real estate market?
Great question.
Christopher, you want to handle this one first?
Jason's got it.
Jason.
Yeah, I'm still positive.
Okay.
Maybe it's I'm new in the game and I'm like undyingly optimistic. But I do know even towards the end of the year, the interest rates aren't supposed to go up above 4%. So that gives me hope that a lot of people are still going to be mulling that over. And that means that I'm going to be there to build that relationship for you and get you to where you need to go or where you want to be at. So I'm super optimistic. I feel good about the market myself.
Great
What about
answer.
you?
That was a great answer. How about you, Christopher?
I wave in between. Would you say lukewarm and
Yeah.
positive?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's still a good time to buy. Interest rates are still fantastically low. They're going to increase, but we're not going to. I mean, they'll jump, but nothing crazy. So I think if you can land a home and score a home this year, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great for you, and it'll set you up fantastic. However, I think the only reason I say lukewarm is because I think that for a lot of buyers, it's going to be a getting in the ring and going like 10 rounds at this point. Just like last year. I think we're repeating exactly what happened last year. We're not going to have a Mike Tyson fight where you get to get out in one round. You're going to have to probably put in a few rounds. Which
And your ear will stay intact.
yeah, you won't. Yeah, you won't get bit off at all. And I think you'll just have to. I think you'll just hunker down. You have to have patience, like we talked about earlier, and then you may have to put in more than offers than you're expecting, and then just kind of be ready. But I think if you're persistent at trying to find a home, you'll find one this year for sure.
Well, I love the optimism, and I think you're 100% right. I think we're going to be a little off year over year in volume.
Yeah.
It's starting to feel that way. It's starting to look that way. I think we may be seeing a little bit of a normal January. Right?
You're saying from inventory levels.
From an inventory level perspective, having snow on the
For
ground.
a month.
for a month that we
Yeah.
haven't had since 2009 is impacting
Oh, yeah.
things a little bit. I can tell you, COVID and Ramadan, is that how we pronounce that?
Yeah.
Is impacting things, I think. But I project that you're probably going to see a little bit more come on the market in the spring. So from my perspective, if you're looking to sell, now's the time to do it. And if you're looking to buy, now's the time to do it. I think you're going to see a little bit more competition come the spring. Maybe that's just me being super optimistic about it, but it just seems like this is what everybody is saying. But I know this much. I know you two guys are going to do great.
Yeah.
I know this much because you've got the right
You guys
attitude.
are ballers.
You got the right attitude, and that's what it takes, the can-do attitude to do it. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for doing
welcome.
this.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm rolling through my mind because I got a couple of trips coming up that you all might be sitting in this seat for me, but we'll talk about that later.
Sign me up.
Sign
You know
me
I
up.
like the
I'm,
thought.
I'm down
You know I
for
like
that
the
all
thought,
day
yeah.
long. I would. That'd be cool. That'd
This
be
has
awesome.
been fun. You guys are great, very great in this setting.
Yeah.
Keith Smith, Jason Taylor, and Christopher Eagle, Yes Realty Partners. Find them online at yesrealtypartners.com. And you heard our distinguished gentleman over there, inventory levels are low. So if you're looking to sell your home, competition is at some of the lowest points it's been in a long time because that inventory is so low right now. Yes Realty Partners, guys. We also want to acknowledge Saguaro Solar, Closure Title, Ally Property Management, KW, Alliance, Keller Williams, Alliance, an absolute trusted name in this real estate game, guys. We're grateful for all you guys watching the program. The I Love Seville show is up in 53 minutes today, and we will see you very soon. Judah Wickhauer, thank you as well. Guys, we'll talk to you very shortly. Take care. You will tell us.